So in this video, let's talk about nitrogen chemistry, okay, and imine chemistry, okay. So remember we said that anytime we take some sort of carbonyl compound, it could be an aldehyde or a ketone, and maybe I add let's say ethanol, okay. If I add this in acid, then we get the product to be something that looks like this, okay. And all we're doing is just adding on to that carbon. All we're doing is replacing that carbon oxygen double bond with two of these molecules, okay? And the chemistry is very same, or it's quite similar, not the same for a carbonyl with nitrogen. So I'm gonna take 2-butanone, okay? This is 2-butanone, and if I take, I don't know, like ammonia, if I take ammonia, here's a product that I get. It should be a hydrogen. Okay, here's a product that I get. Now this is called an imine. Okay, this functional group here, where you have this R, and then double bonded N to another R, and this is a hydrogen, by the way, guys. Okay, this is called an imine. So let's go through the mechanism. Okay, and usually we run this in sort of acid. Okay, so if I take 2-butanone, okay. Remember when we throw these in acid, the first thing we're going to get is protonation of carbonyl, of the oxygen. Okay, so this will come in and attack one of the hydrogens and form water in solution. Okay, now my oxygen has 3 bonds, it has a +1 formal charge. Okay, so what do you guys think will happen in the next step? In the next step, our nucleophile NH3, 2 lone pairs of nitrogen will come in and attack and form an alcohol on that oxygen there. Okay, so we get to an intermediate that looks like this. We get our alcohol, OH, and now we have a nitrogen, okay, that has 3 hydrogens around it. Well, no, anytime we see nitrogen with 3 hydrogens or 3 bonds, 4 bonds around it, automatically it has a +1 charge. Okay, so in the next step, water will come in, okay, and neutralize the NH3. So it will come in and take one of those hydrogens off and put the bond in the form of a lone pair on the nitrogen. So I come to an intermediate that looks like this. We have our NH2 with 2 lone pairs on it. Okay, so what do you guys think will happen in the next step? What do you guys think will happen in the next step? Okay, in the next step, we're gonna get protonation of the alcohol. So we just form acid in solution again. Okay, we just form acid in solution again. So the oxygen is going to come in, take one of these hydrogens off, and put the bond in the form of lone pairs to form water again. So we get to an intermediate that looks like this. We get an oxygen, 2 hydrogen, +1 formal charge. Okay, well, that's nice to know. And we still have our NH2. Okay, now the next step in mechanism, there's only one part that the next step requires, okay? And there's only one last step, and the reason why we protonated the oxygen was to form water, because OH we know is a bad leaving group. So one of the hydrogens one of these bonds are gonna come in, form a double bond, and expel water as a leaving group. And so we get the product to look something like this. Okay, now obviously we're gonna redraw it. Okay, we're gonna redraw it and say it looks something like this. Okay, and this is what we call the imine. So again, this type of chemistry with aldehydes and ketones and that carbonyl and acid, if we throw in alcohol, it's the chemistry is fairly similar. The mechanisms are fairly similar, not quite the same. And so maybe we could look at another one. Okay, so let's take the idea of acetone. So if I add acetone, okay, in solution with acid, okay, I'll take acetone and add in solution with acid and ethylamine. Okay, we're going to take ethylamine. Okay, what is going to be my product? Okay, well, the first step of the mechanism, again, anytime we throw acid in the presence of carbonyl, it's going to get protonated. Okay, so the oxygen grabs the proton, okay, and we come to an intermediate that looks like this with a plus charge. Okay, well, that's nice to know. Now, our nucleophile, nitrogen, 2 lone pairs on it, comes in and attack the carbonyl, and we form an alcohol on that bond, okay? So now we come to an intermediate that looks like this. We have nitrogen that has 2 hydrogens around it, and this group here, so it automatically has a +1 formal charge, and we have our alcohol up here, okay? So in the next step, remember, we form water in solution, so it will come in and act as a base, okay, and take one of these hydrogens off, okay, and neutralize the molecule. So we still have our OH, we have this R group, and we have NH. This is now neutralized. Okay, this is now neutralized. So what do you guys think will happen in the next step? Well, my oxygen is going to get protonated. So I just reformed acid in solution. Okay. So it comes in, attacks acid, okay, and reform water in solution. And so the next step in the process, we get to an intermediate that looks like this. You have our NH, every oxygen that has 3 hydrogens, +1 formal charge. Now that we form the water molecule that we will dispel, there's a bond here between the nitrogen and the hydrogen. And what the reaction will do is that it's going to sacrifice these 2 electrons to form a double bond, okay, and expel water's leaving group. And so we get the final product to look something like this. Okay, we get the final product to look something like this, and obviously we could redraw it, okay, and say it looks something like this. Okay, so this is the final product. Again, this is an imine. Okay, so these chemistries, as you can see, is fairly similar.